Since its premiere in 2012, Graveyard Cars has made good use of their motto, No Mopar or No Car, by delivering some of the most stunning and impressive car restorations to audiences all around the world. By bringing back to life these decades-old Mopars, the garage staff has undertaken a relentless mission to make car owners happy, no matter what it takes. Mopars originally stood for motor parts, but specifically those muscle cars produced by the Chrysler Company. While the Graveyard Car staff of mechanics, steelworkers, and car specialists have some impressive skills, the shop would be lost if it wasn't for the leadership and knowledge of Mark Werman, the business owner and who knows more about Mopars than almost anyone else. So, what has Mark been up to these days? Is Graveyard Car still on air? Or has he and his staff moved on to other projects? Stay here to know all about Mark Werman's whereabouts, his automotive passions, personal life, and so much more. It's been a while since Mark Werman debuted on TV with the premiere of Graveyard Cars, but fortunately life has been looking great ever since. Nowadays, he's still happily hosting the Motor Trends show during its 17th season, premiered in late 2022, along with the other side of projects Mark has been proudly developing as well, such as his series 14th Street Wheels. A man of business through and through, Mark has taken Graveyard Cars to the next level by selling merchandise of the show and often attending car-related events representing his company. One of his most recent achievements is becoming ambassador for Mopar in 2017. The only person given that honor by the company due to his loyalty and passion for the brand. Although not much is known about Mark's personal life, it's for sure that the year 2022 was a happy one in the family. In October, he met his grandson Giannis, fourth child of his daughter Alyssa Rose, who the Graveyard Cars audience knows well for being a recurring cast member of the show for several years. So it seems that both career and personal life is going for Mark. Following the end of Graveyard Cars' 16th season in early 2022, fans were worried about the future of the show. The reasons were quite understandable, given the start of a new project, 14th Street Wheels, in August that year, featuring Mark Werman and his cousin Dougie, also an automotive enthusiast. While it isn't rare for TV stars to split their time between two or more shows at the same time, several months passed before Graveyard Cars' renewal was announced in November of that year. Only a month before the 17th season finally aired on Motor Trend. It had seemed unlikely that Graveyard Cars would be leaving TV screens anytime soon, but it surely won't be rare to see him involved in other projects just as interesting from now on. More than just a show about cars, 14th Street Wheels is a project about history and love of old times. The show first saw the light of day in August 2022 when Mark Werman and his cousin Dougie began posting car and bike building videos on social media. Affirming their joint love for the automotive started during both men's childhood in Springfield, Oregon. In fact, the project owes its name to the 14th Street in their native city, where both roamed the roads either skating, riding bicycles, or becoming dazzled by the beauty of putting various items together to build something. The series also owes its name to the house in which Mark grew up. Connecting everything to that place was so pivotal to the person he is. There I learned the mechanical skills that have led me to where I am today, professionally. We didn't have money, but I had imagination, he wrote on Twitter in December 2022. That same passion which had joined Mark and Dougie for decades inspired 14th Street Wheels, which didn't take long to be picked up by the production company Meadow Media, which promotes the show as a family-friendly production with a do-it-yourself focus. According to its social media, the show was also picked up by a major TV network, but further details about its future premiere and format are yet to be known. Besides 14th Street Wheels, Mark Werman has other projects in the making nowadays that will surely make his fans happy. The first is Graveyard Dreams, produced by Meadow Media, and centered on Graveyard Motors, a car dealership reminiscent of the 1970s and the stories of every car lover's first ride. In the show, Mark helps people to find their first loved car from their youth, either tracking it down to its actual location or, if unavailable, trying to recreate it just as every melancholic car owner featured in the series remembered it. The project was first introduced to the general public in 2018. Through an article Mark wrote for Motor Trend's blog, in which he affirmed that the idea from the series came from a client named Jim, who was gifted a brand new Plymouth Duster on his 17th birthday. He sold it a decade later, but soon regretted his decision and has been looking for it for decades. as any automotive fan knows, Jim's story isn't unique, hence leading Mark to the idea of Graveyard Dreams, though it's unfortunate that the production has apparently not been picked up by any network yet. Other short series produced by Mark include The Barn-Centered Gravedigger and History in Reverse, added to his production company, The Division. It's never easy to summarize in a few words who a man with the experience of Mark Worm really is, but the most important thing to know is that he loves cars and he loves his job. A native of Springfield, Oregon, Mark always meant to enter the automotive industry one way or another. Creativity and imagination were always Mark's talents, spending his early childhood either learning everything he could about mechanics, building devices from scratch with self-made tools, or even fixing his house's garden tractor. Mark grew up and passed his general educational development, yet he knew his path wasn't in academics, and his love for Mopars played an important role in that, having apparently read all types of muscle car magazines and informational guides, to the extent of knowing the specifications by memory. Once I realized it was almost a science to memorize these numbers and parts and codes, I really dove into it. He explained to Racing Junk in 2015. Driven by the passion and relentless drive to learn, the young Mark never abandoned his dream of dedicating his life to Mopars. Little did he know that not much time would pass before he would take the first step towards accomplishing that goal. At the same time that Mark Worman filled his head with lots of codes and Mopar parts specifications, he got other job experience by working as a broom boy in local businesses or doing car repairs. His time to shine came when he was in his 20s and the local Wonder Bread, where he had worked in his teens, left town. Seeing the opportunity to turn the once spacious fast food basement into a garage, Mark started his first business named Welby's Car Care Center. Having already gathered enough knowledge about codes and Mopars, Mark knew what to do next. It became a matter of taking the time to walk through the junkyards, cleaning off the parts and looking at their part numbers, and thumbing through old parts manuals. As he told Racing Junk, also affirming that the lack of internet and other resources at the time left him no other option than to extensively research and actually go searching on foot. Now Mark doesn't need to consult on the internet to know what he's doing, yet what's really impressive is how much time he's dedicated to his craft, driven by passion and will alone. Developing a deep passion for cars is one thing, but it's unusual to dedicate one's entire professional life to becoming an expert in one type of car alone. While not everyone is able to comprehend or relate to Mark Worman's love for Mopars, there's no one better than him to explain it. As he said in a 2016 interview with Rosemarie Macario's blog, Mopars bring back memories from his youth, when he felt that his car also represented who he was. He wasn't alone with it though, as next to his 1970 Dodge Charger was his cousin's Plymouth Barracuda, and together they were the best match. Most people in my hometown had Camaros or Mustangs. Our cars were the oddballs, a lot like us, and we were different, and the Mopars were too, he affirmed. While it isn't rare to find one's sense of identity through a car, Mark's dedication to know everything about Mopars was caused by something equally as important. I think that the fact that I was passionate about the cars made it so easy for me to study them and learn about them, he told Racing Junk in a 2015 interview. All in all, there are a lot of things behind Mark's love for Mopars, but the most important is simply that it's inspired him his entire life. As with any committed car enthusiast, there's an interesting story behind Mark Worman's first car and how it came to be his. In his childhood, Mark saved money by taking all types of small jobs, going from making burgers to delivering papers in his neighborhood, finally buying a second-hand 1970 Dodge Charger when he was only 16 years old. Although by then, Mark already had experience behind the wheel. At the early age of 14, he bought a 1971 Honda CL 100 Scrambler with the money he saved as a paperboy. He rode the bike everywhere even before hitting the legal age to drive, inevitably accumulating lots of tickets for his recklessness on the road. It was around this time that Mark first caught sight of a Charger parked on a house driveway. Mark would soon know that the car hadn't been moved for 3 years at the time, but despite the dirt on it, seeing that orange Dodge changed Mark's life forever. That day, he sealed a deal with the car owner, a Mopar guy named Butch, who actually waited over a year for Mark to save the $475 the car cost. Truly a charming story, even though Mark had to sell his Honda bike and worked very hard as a paperboy to afford it. While his passion for Mopars was a definitive turning point in his life, there was always someone whom Mark looked up to even when times were dark and difficult. Growing up in a household where money was limited, Mark was taught the value of hard work and resilience by his mother. Ruby Jean, who Mark describes in an interview with J.P. Emerson as amazing and determined, was someone who truly inspired her son to accomplish those dreams which are now a reality. She saw something in me that maybe I didn't even see at the time, and she encouraged me every day to do right and never quit anything, he said. Unfortunately, Mark's mother died in 2018, but her idea of doing things right is what to this day still pushes Mark to be the best at it, even at work, taking every project as if it was his own car. As usual for Mark Worman, everything has a story behind it, including how Graveyard Cars came to be. Always up to helping people to have their dream car, Mark took on the restoration project of a 1971 Plymouth Barracuda in the early 2010s. After looking everywhere, Mark finally found a car nicknamed Phantom Cuda for his client, who bought it despite the very poor condition of the Mopar. The restoration was filmed, which ended up becoming a pilot episode, which they tried selling to every network without success. Most of the rejections were caused by the niche nature of the show's concept, yet Mark wasn't ready to give up. He proceeded to not only continue with the project, but to film 6 episodes entirely in high definition. The strategy paid off when an Australian company bought the material and distributed it internationally, finally landing on Motor Trend's offices. Evidently, Mark's inspiring nature of always putting his 100% into everything he does is what made it possible for Graveyard Cars to be where it is today. Thank you for spending some time with us. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpicked these videos which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question in the comments below. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.